Hey, good evening, Indiana. Happy Sunday to you. You tired of seeing me yet? This is my third one of these today. I am here this evening with Keil Roark. He is a candidate for Congress here in Indiana's vast 9th Congressional District. Welcome tonight, Keil. How you doing?
Doing excellent, Scott. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity this evening to talk with you, discuss the issues. Thank you again.
We love doing these things. Love the chance to get to talk to the candidates. Love getting everybody on the record. Just see where you are, and if you are out there on Facebook Live, on YouTube, or directly on the Progressive Indiana website there at progressiveindiana.net, go ahead and put your questions for Keil right in the chat. Ask him about anything you want. I'll be screening things, so not everything's going to slip by, but if you got good, thoughtful, respectful questions, we will go ahead and put those right up on the screen and see where Keil stands and get him on the record with your questions. Again, Facebook Live, YouTube, and progressiveindiana.net. You go ahead and put your questions right there in the chat, and we'll get those on the screen. So before we get there, Keil, we give folks a chance to get in, get settled, get their popcorn or whatever they're doing here tonight. Why don't you introduce yourself and talk about your campaign for just a couple minutes here?
Sure. Yeah. My name is Keil Roark. I'm a candidate for Indiana's 9th Congressional District. I am a former UAW assembly line worker. Spent about 8 years doing that. Worked at Kokomo Transmission for a few years of that 8, and then went on to Purdue University. Got my engineering degree at Purdue University, West Lafayette, and worked at multiple companies, Chrysler, Cummins, Ford, and now at Rolls-Royce. And then in between there, I was a Navy Reserve officer. I did 8 years on reserve as a reserve component officer, civil engineering. And then I did 3 years on active duty doing Navy officer recruiting. That's my background. Obviously, I'm married, 4 wonderful children, and I'm a Christian. I go to church. And I enjoy, I'm deeply worried about this country, and I'm really worried about our folks in this district not being able to pay their bills, quite frankly. A lot of financial pressure in terms of cost of living, affordability. And I'm throwing my name in the hat because I want to try to change that. I really want to try to help folks get their wages increased so they can pay their bills, right? That wages are not keeping pace with inflationary measures. I think everybody knows that. They feel it at the grocery store. And that's just one piece of it. But also, if you look at housing prices or rent prices, they're shocking, right? So threw my name in the hat and want to make some change, want to make some differences here. And I think with my UAW background, Navy officer background, and educational background, I think I'm the best candidate to do that in the 9th Congressional District.
Well, very good. We appreciate you being here and joining us tonight. We appreciate you putting yourself out there, throwing your hat in the ring. It is vulnerable to ask for people's vote like this, and to go and travel our corner of the state and just ask for people to judge you, basically, right?
That's right. It's a tough business, but that's okay. I've been around, spent many years in manufacturing, automotive plants, and then as a former Navy officer, I've been around. I've seen a few things. Been trained well to handle this kind of thing, for sure.
So let's go ahead and get into it. And we are still waiting on folks to go ahead and put some questions in there that we can bring up on the screen. But I'm gonna ask one to get us started. And you mentioned affordability, and that seems to be a message that Democrats are coalescing around at this point in the campaign. We got lots of months to go between now and then, but it sounds like you said affordability. So that sounds like you believe that is the right message. How do we go about achieving it? How do we go about raising wages and lowering costs, or at least raising wages to the point where they cover the increasing costs?
Yeah, no, great question. So I think there's a couple avenues of approach. I think one, you have to look at the $7.25 federal minimum wage. That's the federal minimum wage, $7.25. It hasn't been changed since 2009. I think that's abhorrent, right? I mean, it's like $7.25. What? It's just unbelievable that it's that low. It really needs to reflect current reality, right? So we probably need to be at a $12 or $13 range to make that even close. I think I just saw in the news that the Virginia governor just signed a executive order and legislation to move theirs to 15. So you're seeing it across the spectrum of different states. And then two, the second piece of that is I really think we need to start to, advocate for folks to go into businesses and trades that are in dire need. So you might have heard that obviously the baby boomers are retiring. A lot of folks are not going into the skilled trades, whether it's pipe fitters, plumbers, electricians. They're just not those trades, and they're not, and they're really looking for folks, and they pay well. They traditionally pay very well. And so we have to look for incentives and subsidies to allow for folks to go to those tech schools, get a degree, and then get out and get a skilled trades job. And then the same thing goes for healthcare, right? We're always in the need to get folks in the healthcare industry, right? Nursing, phlebotomy, different healthcare opportunities, always in a need. Baby boomers are retiring, and we're always in a need for those folks to do that. So I think we hit it in two ways. We go after, the minimum wage, and then we also look at on-the-job training, those high demand skilled trades jobs that nobody's filling. And also too, another thing is the AI, all the data centers and AI, right? Those are kind of AI proof jobs, right? Skilled trades are AI proof. They're three-dimensional jobs because they require a human to actually do the work. So that's another incentive to get into a position or a role that's kind of AI proof, right? So nurse and then medical is kind of the same way. You really need a human to do that role. We're not anywhere close to having a robot become a nurse, right?
Nor should we ever. I don't think.
Ever, right? I mean, we're nowhere near that. I mean, the idea that's kind of scary, but for the next 10 to 20 years, I think we're safe to say got to have a human to do that job, right? So, I would advocate strongly for those policy positions because I think there's a lot of fruit there. And that's what people want. They want a wage increase because what they're making now is not keeping up with wages or, inflationary measures. It's just not. Every time you go to the grocery store, you're getting, milk or yogurt or what have you, and it goes up 50%. It seems like. It just seems like every time you go to the grocery, you're paying an extra 20, 30, 40% for groceries on average.
Boy, I'll tell you, I went this afternoon between a couple of these live streams, and that cart filled up, and it was a couple $100 before you know it, for sure.
Oh yeah, you're like, I got 6 items. I got 6. Oh, here you go. It's $100. You're like, what? Yeah.
Let me ask you, because you mentioned the minimum wage, and you said it should be something like $12 or $13 an hour. And I was going to ask, what should the minimum wage be? And I think you sort of got where you'd like to settle. You mentioned $15 in Virginia. I want to say, we were pushing for a $15 minimum wage over here on the left. Oh boy, 10 years ago. And if you look at where minimum wage was in, say, the 1950s and 1960s, adjusted for inflation, it would be closer to $30 at this point if it had kept up. So how did you arrive at that 12-13 number? Is that solid? Is that malleable? Where are you at?
I mean, it's just a typical calculation. You can go online and just do a typical 1% to 2% change year after year and get a calculation of $12 or $13 an hour. I mean, in a perfect world, we could move it to 15 or 20 or 25. I mean, there's a lot of economists saying it should be 25 or 30, right? But you have political reality, right? You got political reality. So we all know how hard it is to get legislation across, to get bipartisan legislation passed. It's very difficult. So, if you advocate for 20, you might get 15, you might get 13, right? So I think at the end of the day, we'll land at 12 or 13. We'll start higher than that. So
okay,
because
so where would you start your negotiations then? I always make fun of folks that I say that they learned how to negotiate watching that Monty Python skit, if you know the one I'm talking about. Like, no, you have to haggle.
I mean, to be honest, I would really have to do some research, because the $15 an hour range that for Virginia is a different value than what it would be in Indiana, right? Because our average medium income family is in Indiana $70,000 a year. I don't know right off the top of my head what Virginia's medium income salary is. So my guess is a little higher. That's my guess, but I don't know. I have to find that information out. I would start at about $18 an hour, and then see if we could get into the $14 or $15 an hour range. But because a lot of things have changed in the last 5 years, right? We had COVID and all the inflationary issues, all the debt we've borrowed from a macro perspective has made things more expensive, right? Everything's been more expensive ever since 2020, right? So that number is a fluid number, but I really think we're going to end up around 14 or 15 an hour. But if I was to start, I would start at 18 and just see where we can land.
Let me follow up and ask, if we get to a point where we're raising the minimum wage, should we then peg it to inflation so we don't have to keep revisiting this, so we don't have to go another 15 plus years before folks at the bottom end of the wage scale get another raise? We just raise it automatically.
Yeah, they should treat it just like Social Security, right? Where you have a cost of living index that gets adjusted for Social Security, right? I think they should treat it the same way. Because that's the problem. These numbers aren't changing over time, and everybody knows that the value, the dollarly rate changes every year, 2 to 3% on average, right? And so I would advocate for those adjustments, just like Social Security payments.
All right, very good. Sorry if I interrupted there. So I want to ask. We got a question here over on YouTube. Christine asks, how about healthcare for people? Now, we know we were talking about affordability. One of the major things that is driving the unaffordability crisis is that people's health insurance rates are going up. The cost for procedures is going up. Drug prices keep going up and up and up and up. So how do we address that? The healthcare cost spiral that we're currently in.
Well, we all know about the ACA subsidies that expired. For those folks who have ACA coverage, I would definitely advocate for reinstituting those subsidies, because, folks need help, right? There's no reason why we can't, allow them those subsidies to help, minimize some of their costs, so that doesn't become an overbearing cost in their household, right? So they were talking around $1,200 to $1,300 in healthcare costs per month. That's rivaling, rental prices, right? Rent for one bedroom apartment, or mortgage in some cases, assuming you got a low interest mortgage. So healthcare is becoming a major, and has been for some time, but I would advocate for, reinstituting those ACA policies, subsidies back in. I think it's a good win. And I think the Democrats did the right thing by advocating for those. Of course, it didn't, we had a shutdown because of it, and the Republicans said they'd take it up, and they took it up and they didn't reinstate those. So,
oh, go figure. The Republicans didn't hold their word. Who would have thunk it? So let me follow up then and ask. So here's
one other thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now I have a healthcare policy, and my work, well, not just my work, but many of the companies I've worked for, they give you healthcare credits. So if you go to the doctor, if you go to the dentist once a year, twice a year, right? You get your health, you get your heart checked, you have your blood work, you know, you do all the basic checks you're supposed to do, right? You exercise, all these different things that are good for you, right? You get a credit. So a credit, maybe $500 or $1,000 towards your healthcare bill. I think those are really excellent policies, because that encourage people to establish positive, healthy habits. And
Sure.
statistically, it's proven if you have positive, healthy habits, you're less likely to get sick and less likely to get ill more often, right?
So yeah, let me follow up on this healthcare theme and say, like, are these things just sort of nibbling around the edges with the Obamacare subsidies? Do the insurance companies just keep raising their rate to extract more and more subsidies? Things like the incentives to for healthy habits and stuff. That's great, but if what about going upstream and dealing with this at a more systemic level? And some folks over here on the progressive left thinks Democrats should move toward a Medicare for all universal single payer health plan. What do you think about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we need to be real careful, because I mean, we do have Medicare. Obviously, once you turn 65, you're eligible for Medicare. And I think we have Medicare, we have ACA, and people are required to sign up for ACA if they don't have insurance. If they don't sign up, then they get penalized during tax time, right? So they get a penalty.
They used to, they don't anymore.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But they do have an opportunity to get healthcare in that form. But I think the single payer idea, and Medicare for all, I would have to really look at that, because in some situations, I think it's value add, because there's statistical studies that show that more people have healthcare, the premiums come down. So, but I would have to look at the different states and see how that actually fans out in terms of cost. Because if it comes too costly, people are going to drop it, and it's just not going to be workable, or the coverage quality isn't very good. So I don't have the best answer on that, but I'm one of those people, those candidates, that if I don't have the best answer, I'll research it and find the answer. I'm not just going to throw a bunch of stuff out there.
Well, I certainly appreciate that, because a lot of times folks will just BS you. And
no, I'm not that guy. If I don't have the answer, I'll just tell you I'm not that familiar with it. I need to get the answer and find out.
All right, fantastic. So let me ask. I want to move from affordability to accountability. Now, President Trump has, I don't know, violated the Constitution just about every day of both of his terms of office. Do you think Democrats should pursue impeachment right off the bat, should Democrats take control of Congress?
Well, I'd have to sit down and look at the laundry list of offenses, and pick the one that's most likely to get the 66 or get the 67 votes in the Senate. Because other than that, it's an exercise of futility, right? I mean, I would even maybe consider going after Bondi more so than Trump, because Bondi actually, per the Epstein Act, broke the law. She was supposed to provide all the pages unredacted 30 days. Didn't happen. So that's clear as the blue sky, right? So I would really look at what's the most plausible case that is definitely a high crimes and misdemeanor, right? So you can debate all these different actions, like the Trump Kennedy Center. Did he have a right to do that? I don't know. Maybe, and look at the different offenses to see which one has the most wiggle room. To be honest, it's hard to believe we're here in the first place.
Right.
Oh, because he got indicted 96 times. So anyway, it's another topic. But the indictments that really bothered me the most from being an ex-Navy officer are the classified documents.
Yes.
That is the one where he would have been in deep, he would have gotten convicted on that, because you really can't lie about that. I mean, it is either you have the documents or you're not. And he shouldn't have done that, and he did. But anyway, that's another topic. So it would have, for me to push for impeachment, it would have to be a sure thing, because the Republican Party is not going to, they're not going to vote against something or for something that is not a slam dunk, right? It's got to be something slam dunk, right? So, you know, the Impoundment Act, where they're doing pocket rescissions, I think that is the one where they could really push impeachment, because that is actually taking authority away from Congress. You know, Congress allocated, for example, $1 billion. All of a sudden, Trump says, oh, well, that's that billion. No, you don't get that billion. We want 500 billion or 500, half. We're going to take a half. We're going to move it somewhere else. That's what pocket rescissions are. And so I think that is the clearest path to impeach him and getting convicted, because that's clear you're truly taking congressional authority out of the hands of Congress.
Right. And, well, you know, so you're rattling off various crimes and misdemeanors. The whole thing, like, you know, pick one.
Pick the worst one.
The fact that we're here, it really says something to the time that we're in. And,
that's right.
It's amazing that we can't get an impeachment for in the first term when he just flagrantly violated the law every day, and now it's even worse.
Yeah, and then also the indictments, right, going after the political enemies. I mean, just, praise the Lord that we have the grand jury system. You know, the grand jury system's really saved us. And most people don't realize that, but that's the founding fathers left us a gift there. So it's basically a jury of our peers that look at, should we indict somebody or not? And apparently they're putting all kinds of people together, and they're like, nope, no indictment. Nope. This is an exercise in futility. You're wasting our time.
So I want to on the courts. You know, you mentioned that our founding fathers left us a gift in the way they designed our system. And one of the things that they designed into the system is that Congress gets to determine the composition of the Supreme Court, including the size of the Supreme Court. Now, our current justices, we've got a couple at least who are openly, flagrantly corrupt. Some of the other ones have been appointed through political shenanigans and trickery. And they've done things like given Trump immunity for illegal acts he committed during the course of his official duties. So I guess, and they've stymied many things that have gone through Congress, saying they're unconstitutional, even though it seems to be what people want. So to that end, would you support efforts to expand the size of the Supreme Court?
Well, Roosevelt tried to do it during his administration, the court packing. I think he tried to add, it wasn't 11. I think it was 13. That he
tried to do it by age of the justices and add one for every justice who was over a certain age. It was kind of a wonky way to do things. I think like the most common proposal I see now is to match the number of Supreme Court seats to the number of federal court benches, and it's 13. There are 13 federal court districts that has not grown since the 9 that it used to be. Would you support 13? I see Elie Mystal, a judicial writer for The Nation, says 99, or we should have like a rotating cast of federal court judges that get, they come on to the Supreme Court and then they go back down. They come on, they go back down. there are various proposals. Do you support any of them? You want to keep things status quo? Other idea?
Well, I try to take the long view here, right? So, say a Democrat gets in 2028, he'll be there, he or she will be there 4 years, maybe 8 years. And then there'll be another Republican independent, maybe. Do we really want to go down the path where every administration's trying to add 2 or 3 or 4 more justices? I mean, we have to be really careful about messing with our institutions in terms of changing the structure. Because that could really undermine our democracy and our institutions. We have to be very careful. So as of right now, I would, I'd advocate for just status quo for right now. Just stick it at 9 because of the long-term view. We don't know what the future holds, and I hate to make a guess as to what could possibly happen if we added 2. And then next time, Democrat comes in, we add 2. Republican comes in, they add 2, right? We can get a snowball effect. But in terms of corruption and certain justices not adhering to the appropriate ethics, they should be impeached, and they can be impeached. They have been impeached in the past. So I think the latest one was like in the 1920s. There was a chief justice, or one of the justices was accused of ethics and impeached. I think he ultimately got away.
Yeah, and then I believe they threatened one of the justices with impeachment in the late 60s or early 70s.
Yeah,
and he wound up resigning instead of going through with the thing.
Yeah.
So,
but I think a lot of it right now is because the Republicans control Congress and the executive, so the investigative body's not there. So if the Democrats take control, then we potentially have an investigative body back. And we can investigate potentially a chief justice wrongdoing, and potentially go after impeachment for that justice.
Yeah, you mentioned FDR and his court packing gambit in the 1930s. No, that didn't work out. But regardless, I'm a big FDR guy, big fan.
Okay.
Who is your favorite, or who do you think was the best U.S. president of the 20th century? I want to limit it to that because everybody says if you ask their, the best U.S. president, it's like, oh, okay, Lincoln or Washington. Well, yeah, that's easy. That's a cop out. Let's limit ourselves to the 20th century there. Who was the best of that era?
I would have to say John F. Kennedy. He was truly an inspirational. Obviously, his tenure was cut short with an assassination, but truly an inspirational president. I think he still to this day has the highest popularity rating, like 80%, something way up there. And due to his tenure being cut short, he wasn't able to get too much done, right? So in terms of popularity, inspiration, and making the country feel like, oh, we're going to go to the moon, right? We're going to design a space shuttle and we're going to land on Mars in 10 years, right? Truly aspiring. But in terms of the most pragmatic, the president, in my mind, who got stuff done, that has to be LBJ. LBJ was very cantankerous and a little hard to deal with.
Yes,
but
he was.
Boy, he got results. Civil Rights Act, Medicare, Medicaid, you name it. Oh, he got a lot done. If you look at all of the legislation he pushed through. Now, of course, at that particular time, I think the Democrats controlled everything. The Democratic Party, we controlled everything.
Yes, they did.
House, Senate, executive, right? So it's easy to get a lot done when you run the show.
Well, Democrats, that was the New Deal era. That was the Great Society era. And Democrats controlled things. I think, well, it was my opinion that they controlled things because they went to bat for the working class. They supported labor. They got things done for the people. The opinion of Democrats has certainly soured since that time. Now, last week, a New York Times focus group made a lot of news when every person, all Democrats, every person in this focus group had unkind things to say about the party. They especially said they would prefer a progressive candidate over a moderate. Now, sounds like you're saying you're more in the moderate camp. Do you is that accurate? That's kind of the vibe I get.
Yes, yes, I'm a moderate centrist for sure. I'm pro worker, but I'm also pro business. I want businesses to be successful, but I want them to pay their people well, a living wage, so they can take care of their families and pay their healthcare costs and have a living wage. I don't want folks to be living paycheck to paycheck, and that's not just a talking point. That's reality. And so from an economic perspective, and of course I'm pro union too. I was in the UAW. If you're 8+ years, I am truly blessed because back in the 90s, I made really good money as a line worker, and I chose to save those dollars and put myself through college. Between myself and the union tuition benefits, I was able to put myself through school and at Purdue. And if I wouldn't have had that good paying union job, I don't think I couldn't have been successful in that area. I wouldn't have been able to do it. So, because as we know, college is very expensive, right? Even then it was pricey. So,
yeah, certainly. So, I want to ask, staying on the labor thing, a real point of contention, I think, between organized labor and not just rank and file Democrats, conservative Republicans in rural areas as well, is data centers. Now, organized labor loves them. It provides a lot of good jobs up front while they're building the things, maybe not necessarily long term. And you mentioned AI earlier. There's lots of other potential downstream effects of building all these AI data centers. So Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont has called for a moratorium on AI and data center construction. How do you feel about this burgeoning industry? And should we slow things down, pause things? How do you look at that?
well, I mean, the good news is a lot of the counties in southern Indiana are taking matters into their own hands. I was just at Dearborn County the other night, and they're working with their county commissioners and potentially putting out a moratorium for their county. Now, other counties actually have a moratorium. And I think I was told Franklin, I have to check on that. Franklin County might have a moratorium on data centers, but don't quote me on that. I have to verify. But anyway, there's a floodgate of opposition against them for two reasons. There's two reasons. One, they're not providing, they're requiring land development and folks who are doing the abatements from the real estate perspective, they're requiring NDAs. So NDAs, non-disclosure agreement, they're not disclosing where the money's coming from. They're not disclosing, who's doing the construction work. They're not disclosing anything. So that's not going to work. If you want to build a data center, that's fine, but you need to disclose what's going on, right? Where the money's coming from, who's getting paid. The second thing is what is the value proposition? And when I say that, I mean, what is the value proposition for that community, right? Are they getting tax revenues for the next 5 years? Are they getting tax revenues for the next 10 years? Is it 2% of the land development costs they're going to get, right? Just like oil subsidies in Alaska, right? If you're going to drill oil in my backyard, okay, well, you need to pay me 3% of the royalties or of the revenues once a year, right? Data centers need to do the same thing. So if you're going to build a data center in my backyard, you need to pay the community. And so that's what's not happening, those two things. And that's why you're getting a major political pushback across southern Indiana in some of the counties, starting to push for moratoriums.
Yeah. Well, another thing with the AI and automation in general is that they cost jobs, white collar jobs with the AI. If you go back to the automation of the, heavy industry, over the last, 50 years, taking blue collar jobs and all that's left is like service sector jobs for the most part. All of the value from automating these jobs away has gone to the top, to the 1%. I want to say it's something like $79 trillion has been funneled upward since 1980.
Oh,
How do
yeah.
we put that money back to work for the people? And to that end, would you support a wealth tax on billionaires above a certain net worth?
Can I go back to the AI part? Just one thing I want to add to that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the third part, I mentioned the two, NDAs, value proposition for the community. But the third part is we have to be really careful. And I'm going to explain why. Because the Chinese government and other countries are building AI at rapid pace, right? So from a defense perspective, we have to be really careful that we have innovation, because that innovation could lead to defense technologies that'll protect us, right? So there has to be a balance, right? We got to balance this thing somehow. And we have to be real careful, because we do need those advanced technologies for defense applications. We do not want our adversaries to have a cutting edge technology advantage over us, because that could risk our defense and our protection in the future, right? So we have to be real careful about that. So back to your question here. It says wealth tax.
Yeah.
Was that billionaires? Oh,
well,
yeah.
you pick your number, right?
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
it's $1 billion,
Absolutely.
maybe it's 2.6 billion, maybe
Absolutely.
it's 7.4 billion. But
Absolutely. All day long. Absolutely. It's the most absurd thing I've ever heard in my life. It's like Jeff Bezos, effective tax rate 4.5% or something like that. And then it's like, nobody should have that kind of money in this country. Nobody. It's just absurd. I would tier it. If you're making over 100, but if you're worth over 100 billion, let's do 10 or 15%. If you're making over 10 billion, let's do 5%. Let's scale it down. Everybody has to pay their fair share. Everybody's got to pay their fair share. We all live in the greatest country on the face of this earth, and a lot of people would disagree with that. But let me tell you, some of these countries like Turkey and Hungary, China, you call out Xi Jinping, guess what? You go to jail and they shoot you. We're still the luckiest planet, or the luckiest country on the face of the planet. It's still a great place. Yes, we have our issues, and I'm deeply worried about our issues about democracy, right? With Trump going too far. And that's why I'm here. I'm here to advocate for democracy and making sure we're holding him accountable if he crosses the Rubicon, which he has. So we need the Democrats in charge to put a check in the place to make sure he doesn't go any further. But we still live in, the best country on the planet. I don't care, hands down. I've been in other countries and we still got it pretty good. Even though we have our own problems.
Yes, we do. Well, you know what? Let's talk about here. Let's break some eggs here. Let's talk about another country that's got it really good, because they have the United States paying for their free healthcare and their fair education and their weapons. And I'm talking about Israel, who does all sorts of shenanigans with their weapons that the United States supplies them. Should the U.S. continue to supply Israel with offensive weapons, given that they have, in the opinion of the United Nations, committed genocide in Gaza, or defensive weapons, or what level of support is appropriate to keep giving this country?
Well, I would say this. I'm 54, and I can remember back when I was a kid that we have had constant Palestinian-Israel conflict. They have conflict every couple of years and then they stop. And then they have conflict every couple of years and then they stop. And it's something that, for whatever reason, every president comes in, they think they have the magic trick, right, to make peace happen between the two. And then they had peace for a year or two, and then they're back at it again. So I don't pretend to be an expert in Middle East peace talks. I'll be the first one to tell you that. But I will say this, and I don't give Trump credit on a lot of things. It seems to me he's done a pretty good job here because they've stopped fighting. At least what I've seen lately, they've stopped fighting, and it seems like there's some kind of path towards a peace agreement. And so I have to give him a little credit for that. I know it's hard sometimes it's hard to give him credit, but he has done some things right on that. I think that's a good thing that they've stopped fighting and they're working on a peace agreement. Now, whether we should continue to supply Israel with offensive weapons, I don't really have a comment on that because, if you continue to provide offensive weapons to a country where you're trying to broker a peace agreement, that's going to undermine the peace negotiations, because the other country is the Palestinians are going to get offended. They're like, wait a minute, you're supplying them offensive weapons. What about us? Right. And next, they'll go back into conflict because it doesn't add value in the peace negotiations when you're adding one party, you're providing aid to one party and not the other.
Yeah. Let me ask, I've got a follow-up here from the chat. Ray asks if you accept money from AIPAC, and I guess I will fatten that question up and ask not just do you, but would you accept money from AIPAC or associated Israel related lobbyists? AIPAC uses a lot of shell organizations to kind of obscure where the money's really coming from.
Oh,
would you accept that or reject that money?
No. Yeah, I would reject that money. If I don't know where the money's coming from and they're not very familiar with a union and what my goals are from a campaign perspective, then I'm not even going to consider doing anything like that. If a PAC wants to support my candidacy based off my aligned positions of affordability, tech training, advocating for no stock trade for the congressional folks who are trading stocks with insider information, I would say no to that.
Okay, and well, let me expand that scope. You mentioned certain PACs, and anybody could start any kind of political action committee for just about anything. So you can't. So folks could say, "Well, I won't accept any PAC money." Well, that doesn't mean much of anything. But would you accept corporate PAC money?
I would have to see. I can't answer that right now because I don't know. It depends. It depends. There's a lot of corporations that are nonprofit that are just trying to support unions. For example, let's say, for example, we have Dearborn County and they want to build a data center. Okay, great. And they're going to provide they're going to have full transparency. They're going to have full value proposition. And then, oh, by the way, another terms and conditions are we require they use union labor on the job. So a company that's supporting that activity, that's going to supply jobs for Southern Indiana and supports jobs and wage growth, then potentially yes. But if they're not going to support the worker and helping support, wage growth and affordability issues with our constituents, then I would not.
All right. So let me change gears a little bit and ask about something that has been a very contentious issue over the last several months, especially with the ramp up of these ICE raids in Minnesota. We're currently under a partial government shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security because Democrats in Congress are holding out for more stringent regulations of agents in ICE and Department of Homeland Security more broadly. On the Democratic side, there's a bit of a issue over the phrase "abolish ICE." Where do you come down? Should this organization be continued to exist in its current form? Can it be reformed? What say you?
So, we all remember 9/11. I do remember that like it was yesterday. The intent of the 9/11 Commission was to set up, develop Department of DHS and ICE and all those organizations. And I do not agree with abolishing ICE. I think what's happening is they're being mismanaged at multiple levels. They're not acting like a normal police law enforcement organization. They're acting more like a paramilitary organization, and that's not correct. And so that's part of the problem. So there's like 3 or 4 problems. One, when they go to do a search, apparently there's no judicial signed warrant. Okay, step 1. 2, they're not clearly identified. They have masks on, but there's doxing. And honestly, I'm going to get real with you real quick. If you're going to step into an ICE role, either FBI, DEA, ICE, everybody takes a chance when they step in these law enforcement roles. So you have to take the mask off and you have to clearly identify yourself. They're not doing that right now. And that's, you can't pull people over with a mask on because you don't know who they are. They don't know, you don't know if they're trying to harm you or your family, right? So that's one of the problems. And then the second thing or third thing is they're not, the state and federal authorities aren't working closely together. And that is the problem, because since they don't work closely together, you have this tinderbox situation, specifically up there in Minneapolis. And that's basically what happened, right? You have ICE doing law enforcement, plus you have them doing protest management. And that's just a recipe for a disaster. And that's what happened. So we need to get back to local law enforcement and federal authorities working together like they always have. I spent 11 years in the Navy, 3 of it on Navy recruiting. And I learned a lot about how state and local authorities work with the federal authorities when it comes to law enforcement activities and how they collaborate. They collaborate on everything. Whether it's bad guy, searching bad guys, bad gals, terrorists, you name it. They collaborate all the time. And it needs to continue that way. Now, why we have certain cities that don't want to cooperate is beyond me. They should just cooperate. Let them go in and get the bad folks who are wanted, who are illegal, and arrest them and let them go through the due process and take them to court and make sure they get their due process rights. And that's the process. We can't let folks come into this country and not know where they came from. That's a recipe for a disaster. We had 9/11, right? We all remember that. We cannot have that repeat again. And so we have to be really strict on, making sure we have border security, making sure ICE has the tools to do its job. But I do agree, ICE is out of control right now. And they need to, secretary needs to be fired, and they need a new person to go in there and reorganize it and train their folks to be a professional police, law enforcement authority, to do their job professionally, like they're supposed to. Right now, they're not acting professionally.
So, in addition to this disagreement that folks within the Democratic Party have over ICE, I think another. Sorry. Oh,
you're a little fuzzy in your sound.
Oh, is it better? Is it still fuzzy?
It's still a little bit fuzzy, little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Mute.
Yeah. Funny. I don't know why these things happen sometimes. It just,
Okay. Not a problem.
Anyway, what I was going to ask is, ICE is a thing that divides Democrats, whether it be reformed or not. Another thing that Democrats have sort of been divided on is how much support they should give the transgender community. And I want to ask where you stand on that. Should transgender individuals be able to update their government-issued IDs to match their gender expression?
So when we say government IDs, are we talking about like if you're a GS employee, a government employee, or
Driver's license, birth
oh
certificate.
yeah. I'm a true believer. Listen, I mean, if you were born a male, you should. The reality is you need to be identified as a male. If you were born a female, you need to be identified as a female on your ID. Now, that's the reference point. People need to know when they look at your ID how you were born as this, and this is how you are now, and that's fair. I support LGBTQ, and they have a right to be happy like everybody else. But when it comes to the ID specifically, I would advocate that if you're born a male, you have males indicated on your licenses and IDs. If you're born a female, a female is indicated on those licenses as well as IDs. Yep. You need a reference point,
guess.
right? You need a reference point. You can't, it's kind of like getting an alias, right? What was your birth name? And then my new name is something different, right? You have to have an origination, right? You started as a different sex, right? And then you just have to have a basis for that.
I would follow up and say that folks in the transgender community say that this puts them in danger if their visible expression doesn't match what the thing on their license say. That could put them in danger with law enforcement, or using a restroom. Are we going to be checking people's pants? How do we do that?
So in my view, if you're born a male, you should be using, okay, if you're born a male and you dress up as a woman, you should be using a male stall. If you're born a female and you dress up as a male, you should be using a female stall. That's just my view. It's a kind of a traditional view about things, because you have to have a reference point. You have to have the standard, hey, here was my sex. Here's how I was born. I'm stuck with using that stall the way I was born. Right. And I'm just going to be honest with you. I could never be, comfortable, as a father of four. I got 3 daughters. If my daughter's in a restroom, and here comes basically a woman, but is actually a male in that same room. I couldn't be comfortable with that. I'd rather, if you're a male, born as a male, you go in the male restroom. If you're born as a female, you go to the restroom in a female restroom. No matter what.
That could certainly cause some issues going the other way, because I've seen some pretty masculine looking trans men that you would not want to send into the women's room.
That's
for
right.
Their safety or anybody else's. So, I guess let me shift gears here. We've only got.
I know that's just how I feel. It's a traditional view on things, and and that's just the way I feel about it. So. Yep.
For folks who are still out there watching, we do have only a few minutes left, so we've maybe got time for a couple more questions there if you want to get something in before we have to wrap things up with Keil here tonight. I asked about what kind of president you admired in the 20th century earlier. Let's bring things into the current era, and you're trying to become a member of Congress. What current member of Congress most closely aligns with your political outlook? Like, if you were going to say, oh, I'm like that person, who would it be?
I would have to say, I mean, it used to be probably Joe Manchin, but he's gone now. He's an independent. But it's probably more so now John Fetterman. I'm probably more of a John Fetterman type. Him and Andy Bashir. Andy Bashir, probably those two.
Of course, Bashir's a governor, but not a congressman. But I see where you're coming from there.
Yeah, moderate. Yeah, pretty moderate. In the middle, have some centrist traditional views, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
All right. Well, very good. So I'll tell you what, we've only got about 5 minutes left here, Kyle, and not getting folks asking those last couple questions here in the chat. I wanted to give you a chance to sort of take us home and give us the closing pitch, if you will.
Sure. Yeah.
And yeah.
So, yeah, Scott, yeah, once again, appreciate the opportunity today and this evening to just talk about the policy positions. I truly believe in my heart, I'm definitely the best candidate to get through the primary as well as the general. I'm definitely, and a lot of folks at IU would probably not like it when I say that, but I'm definitely the Signetti of the group. I'm the guy who can get us, can change the perspective, can get us that crossover appeal, that independent, that disenfranchised Republican. I'm the guy to get those votes. And in the 9th Congressional District, we need 20 to 30% of those votes to be successful in the general. So if you're if you're a little bit more progressive, I don't think you're going to fare well in the general. I think my candidacy, my policies, from a centrist perspective, I think are the best chance we have to winning the general. In my eyes, on the general, not so much the primary. Of course, if I don't make it through the primary, I'm not going anywhere. But I'm the guy in the race who's going to change things up, and I'm the most likely guy to, if I run against Aaron, I'm the guy who can definitely win, because I have that crossover appeal. I have those policy positions that could potentially attract that disenfranchised Republican and disenfranchised MAGA who are just fed up because of my pro-worker stance and wages and such. Yeah, look forward to the race. I appreciate this opportunity this evening, and look forward to chatting with you again sometime soon. Appreciate the time.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'll tell you what, if folks like the message that they hear from you tonight, where can they go find out more information about you, your campaign, if they want to volunteer, donate? I'm sure there's a place where they can go to do that.
Yes. So here's my book. So here's the QR code right there. You click on that QR code.
Andy.
Yeah. And then my website is https://KeilRoark.com.
All right. And that Keil is Keil. That is Keil. Thank you.
Yeah. That's my old. See my sign back there? That's from the state rep run 2022. There it is right there. Yeah. So.
Very good. Well, I'll tell you what, I appreciate you being here with us tonight, Keil, and getting on the record and telling us where you're at on these positions that matter to folks, matter to Hoosiers here in the 9th District. Next week, we're doing another one of these. I will have one of Keil's opponents, Brad Meyer, back for another virtual town hall here. We're going to hear from him. Maybe we'll ask him some of the same questions. I've shared that event space on YouTube and Facebook, so you can start queuing up questions for Brad at any point, and we'll get him on the record here too. But for now, Keil, thank you for joining us here tonight. It has been a pleasure, and thank you there in the chat for asking your thoughtful questions, and thank you for your comments. Thank you, folks who are not here with us currently live, for listening or watching later. We appreciate it. Hey, check your voter registration. Make sure you're registered to vote. Make sure you didn't get purged. Whoever you vote for, make sure you come out on May 5th and vote in the Democratic primary so you don't wind up getting screwed later on for pulling a Republican ballot.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah. Everybody, make sure you vote May 5th. Absolutely. Got to vote May 5th. And if you want to follow me on Facebook or Instagram, I'm on there, and I appreciate you follow me.
All right. Keil Roark, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I have been Scott Aaron Rogers here for Progressive Indiana Network. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week. Love each other, Indiana.